Armenian genocide, one of the dark sides of Armenian history. Actually, the whole presentation mostly is about the Armenian genocide, but I also wanted to speak briefly about the Armenian culture. It is a broad topic, but as I wanted to concentrate more on genocide, I decided to cut the presentation into two parts. So in the first part, we are going to speak about Armenian cultures, and I'll introduce you to some of the traditions that we have. If you will have any questions, you can freely ask during the presentation, and then we can move on. So we can start, guys, I think. Okay. So Armenia is one of the oldest countries in the world. It has a recorded history of about 3,500 years. The one thing that Armenians are usually proud of is that we were the first state to adopt Christianity as our official religion. It happened as early as in 301. With Armenian religion, there is a strong connection with Armenian language. Armenian language is distinct from all others because it is an independent branch of the Indo-European languages. The creator of our alphabet is Mesrop Mashtots. Actually, Armenian right now is the language of the Republic of Armenia, the Republic of Artsakh, and also the majority of Armenian diaspora. You know, you may have known that there are a lot of Armenians living outside Armenia, which is the result of the Armenian genocide, and in different communities, in different countries, they have formed the Armenian diaspora. Central to the Armenian culture is the family, the value of the family. It is very important to Armenians, and traditionally women had the important duty of passing on the culture, customs and traditions to their children. In the picture you can see the traditional Armenian family wearing traditional Armenian clothes. Then we have food, which is also central to the Armenian culture. Maybe you have heard that usually in different projects, when Armenians have to introduce themselves, they speak about their culture. It is central part. They speak about their hospitality and the usage of food as a central part of the culture. And Armenians usually express the importance of food by saying that we have bread and salt among us, which shows their hospitality. And there are many symbols actually characterizing Armenia, but I chose two fruits that are central. Maybe you have heard about the Armenian apricot, which had been grown in the region for almost 3,000 years. And there is the pomegranate, which symbolizes fertility in Armenian mythology. Armenians have also other cultural aspects, and I couldn't just pass without mentioning our music and our traditional dances. Armenians have a rich history, dance history that goes back centuries even before Christ, and these dances and songs usually identify with the works of Armenian writers, painters, and other representatives of the Armenian culture. Of course, there is a lot more to tell about the Armenian culture, but I just chose the key facts about it, and I'm about to go to the next part of my presentation, which is about the Armenian genocide. So if you have any questions about the Armenian culture, about what I've presented, you are welcome. No questions? Okay, so I guess we will continue. Is my voice heard? Do you hear me normally?
Yeah. We can listen to you, no problem.
Yes, okay. So we can continue. Actually, in the 16th century, Armenia, the western part of Armenia, went under the control of the Ottoman Empire, the Turkey, the nowadays Turkey. And Armenians formed a community which was semi-autonomous. However, they suffered several discriminations and hardships under Ottoman empires. Usually, Turks used to overtax Armenians. The religious and political participation of Armenians was limited, and they didn't have their say in the decision-making processes. When people speak about the Armenian genocide, actually they know that it started formally in 1915. However, it is a little bit of, how to say, not true, because Armenian massacres existed even before in Turkey at the end of the 19th century. At that time, the Sultan of the Turkey of the Ottoman Empire, which is the same as the emperor, was Abdulhamid II. And formally, the great powers such as the Great Britain, France, Russia used to oppress him to implement some reforms in Turkey, including in Armenian parts, to give Armenians equal right to participate in the decision-making processes and not to suffer discrimination. However, although formally this emperor passed some rules, passed some set of reforms, one of the most important was Tanzimat. In reality, they were never implemented. Instead of that, he started to initiate massacres in Armenian communities, cities, and villages. So we can say that this massacre started at the end of the 19th century, not just in the beginning of the 20th century. Between 1894 and 1896, 200,000 Armenians were killed by Ottomans under Sultan Abdulhamid II. And this early wave of killing, guys, is called the massacres or the Hamidian massacres. In this way, they are separated from the later atrocities that are known as the Armenian genocide formally. Armenians' hopes to receive equality were brightened when Sultan Abdulhamid II was removed from the reign and another government came into power. They were known as Young Turks. They were a xenophobic nationalist group. Their ideology, maybe some of you have heard about it, was pan-Turkism, which stated that, which meant actually the political and cultural unification of all Turks, and which advocated a state whose population would be only and exclusively Turkic. This actually they used as a justification to remove Armenians as nations living in their country, because they were seen as obstacles. They professed Christianity, they weren't Muslims, plus they were another nation living, one of the biggest nations living there, and they were not Turks. So these young Turks, led by three main pashas, these three persons, Talyat, the Minister of Interior, Jamal, the Minister of Marine, and Enver, the Minister of War, were responsible mainly for the Armenian genocide. Actually, the Armenian genocide didn't happen spontaneously. It was planned beforehand by these people. They even created a special organization in charge of which was another member of this Young Turks, Shakir, who was a doctor, medical doctor. The Armenian genocide was implemented actually step by step. The first part was the disarmament of Armenian soldiers who were serving at that time in the Ottoman army. And you know that the Armenian genocide, as we know, it started in 1915, and in 1914 the First World War outbroke. So Turks saw this as a great opportunity to implement massacres. At this time, the first step, as I have told you, was the disarmament of Armenian soldiers. Later, they were isolated and killed group by group. After that, the biggest event that is known within the Armenian genocide happened on the night of the April 23-24, 1915, when Turkish government arrested hundreds of Armenian community leaders. Most of them were intellectuals, political and religious leaders and professionals. Then they were arrested. However, later most of them were killed as well. On the same day, 5,000 of poorest Armenians were butchered in the streets of the capital city and in their homes. And finally, the remaining Armenians were gathered together and they were deported, forcibly deported to concentration camps in the Syrian deserts. Women and children were driven for months over mountains, and sometimes they weren't given food and water. Many were starving, and this was one of the main reasons of their death as well. Here you can see some pictures of these massacres and atrocities. I gathered some of them. This happened, all of these pictures are witnessing the 1915 year genocide, and these are the marches to the Syrian deserts. These are Armenian refugees already outside of the Turkey, and some Armenian doctors that were hanged in Aleppo Square. And here you can see the Armenian orphans gathered from deserts and brought to Jerusalem in 1918. In some cities, although Armenians organized self-defense battles and sometimes they could even defeat Turks, however, most of them couldn't just avoid the massacres. To just conclude how many people suffered, we can say that at that time in Turkey there were 2.5 billion Armenians living, and 1.5 million became the victims of the genocide. 250,000 converted to Islam. There was also cultural genocide. 2,350 Armenian churches were robbed and destroyed. Armenian schools were eradicated. Armenian books were destroyed, and the cultural genocide nowadays continues not only in Turkey but in Azerbaijan as well, where historical monuments are destroyed. This is done, actually the main reason for this was to forget the Armenians, just to eradicate the fact that at that places there were Armenians living in some time. The three pashas and some other higher officials in the Young Turks government were sentenced to death by the trials that happened later. However, they have escaped the Ottoman Empire before these trials, and in the early 1920s, their punishment wasn't implemented. So an Operation Nemesis was organized by one of the Armenian political parties at that time existing. There were special missionaries chosen, and these persons found the three pashas and other responsible people of the Armenian genocide. Between 1920 and 1922, they were located and assassinated. This was known as Operation Nemesis. Turkey nowadays continues its policy of denying that Armenian genocide ever happened. And although some countries have accepted the fact that the Armenian genocide happened, and they have called it as the Armenian genocide, not only the massacres and atrocities. A lot of people, a lot of nations, countries don't even know about the fact that there was a genocide, or others just avoid and don't want to speak about it. The term genocide was created later, actually. It is made from the Greek word genus, which means race, and the Latin genocide, which means killing. It was coined in 1944 by Lemkin, who was a Polish jurist. He was describing the criminal practices of Nazi Germany throughout occupied Europe and Holocaust. However, he referred to the massacres of the Armenians by the Turks as well. Actually, in 1965, on the 15th anniversary of the Armenian genocide, a memorial dedicated to the victims was built in Tsitsarnakapert in Yerevan. And every year on the 24th of April, Armenians and a lot of foreigners come here to pay tribute to the victims of the Armenian genocide and lay flowers around the eternal flame. Near there is also a museum where several books, pictures, documents about the Armenian genocide are collected, and visitors can get acquainted with them. This year, due to this situation around COVID-19 and the quarantine that exists in Armenia, we weren't able to go and pay our tribute to the victims. However, Armenian government initiated a new way of showing our respect and tribute to the victims. We lit candles from our houses, and here you can see the memorial as well, and people from their houses lighting candles. And these are the doctors actually of one of Armenia's cities who are right now fighting coronavirus. They also joined this initiative. And what I want actually to say, why it is important to recognize the Armenian genocide. We know that there was apathy towards Armenian genocide for such a long time. And when Adolf Hitler sent his troops to Poland, he said, like, go ahead, kill without mercy. Who remembers today the Armenian genocide? So we must remember and we must recognize that these terrible massacres, atrocities, the Armenian genocide in its way happened to prevent other such crimes against humanity from happening. And of course, Turkey's plan failed because Armenians as a nation and even as a republic continue to live nowadays. And it was a failed genocide because all of us survived and we live nowadays. So this was about the Armenian genocide. I finished my presentation. If someone has to add something, wants to add something from Armenians, they can, or if you have questions, you are welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for your presentation. I don't have a question to make to you. I just wanted to say that, like, I come from Greece, and probably you know that, like, we had the same problem with the Greek people that were living in the area of Podos. And
Yes.
we also have, like, the genocide of the Podians there, and like you were, like, still fighting to raise the global awareness, like, about the genocide, because like you, some countries, they don't even think that they exist. And for reasons for information, I think that they are the day that we celebrate that is also coming at the 19th of May. Mm-hmm. And now I think that I have also a question that I think, according to your history records, do you have, like, records that say that the Turks were also taking young children of very young age, like babies of 5 or 6 months, and raise them to become like the Turks, and they were becoming like the worst Turks, that they wanted to murder Greeks, Armenians, and all that. And they were like, but they were like from Greece or something, but they were raised like Turks. Do you have these records also? I don't know.
Thank you very much. Of course, Greeks and Armenians were considered very close nations, even in these terms, because we had the similar experiences related to the genocide which happened to us. Related to your question, actually, I'm not sure about the Greeks who were risen to become murderers or some other nations, but I know for sure that Armenians who stayed in Turkey, who survived the genocide, they were converted to Islam, and among them were a lot of young people of young ages, children, and some of them maybe don't even know their following generations don't even know that they are Armenians, and maybe they even hate Armenians, but they are Armenians in their origin. I mean, they are Turks, and in Turkey right now there is a propaganda against Armenians. It continues, it has never stopped, and when even children are, there are just kids, little children, they are told that Armenians are our enemies, and this hate is instilled in them when they are still children. But about other nations, I'm not sure. At that time, I know that Kurds also helped Turks while committing these massacres and atrocities against Armenians, Greeks, and other minorities living at that time in Turkey. I hope I answered your question.
Sorry?
Was this helpful? I mean, did I answer your question, or you mean something else?
Yeah, no, actually, I just wanting to know, like, if we have some similarities in history, you know, because like we had the Turks in our country for like 300 years, and later on genocide happened like in this area of Bodus, but we just have some records that sometimes the children were like kidnapped. Yeah, they were taken from their houses and raised as Turks to become part of the Turkish enemy. It's like they were just stolen, you know what I mean, just for that. And this is why I'm asking, but I completely understand what you wanted to say. So anyway, thank you very much, and I hope that Spain will recognize that, have it do something.
Yes, I hope so.
You're a lawyer.
Thank you very much.
You're
Actually,
welcome.
Armenian kids also were kidnapped and raised as Turks, and actually in this we are similar as well. So any other questions? Maybe even if you don't have questions, you can express what you feel, or maybe, I don't know, we can discuss.
Okay, I was mentioning it before. For me, personally, it is a shame that Spain don't recognize the Armenian genocide. The genocide would happen also with the Greeks, the Catholic Greeks who were living in the part of Turkey Imperium, the Ottoman Imperium at the time, and also with the Assyrian who were living there. The genocide affected 2 or 3 different populations. All of them were Christian, and it was the main reason to kill them. I think that our government probably in Spain it is very, very far to recognize the genocide, because it is a political fact. Turkey is a good, for the moment, I don't know what will happen in the future, but at the moment it is a good friend, it is a good client of the European Union. So the European government doesn't want to do anything to make angry Turkey, mainly because they have Turkey is being the one country who is blocking the arrival of many of refugees from Syria and from Middle East to Europe, and that's why they are not doing anything to make angry the Turkish government, and especially Erdogan, the president of Turkey right now. I think that it is one president who is especially nationalist, and he will never recognize the genocide, and if some countries will recognize the genocide, it will be like a big offense to him and to the country, to Turkey, and the international relation between these countries will be very, very affected. It is something similar with the Karabakh situation right now, which also is affecting to Armenia. But the other part, it's Azerbaijan. I think that the public relation, international relation, are paying attention just about the business, about the money, and unfortunately, right now, to support Armenia, which is a small country with a small population, it is not very interesting for the European countries. That's why they are prefer to support the idea of don't do anything to make angry to Turkey, or support to the idea of Azerbaijan, because they are having gas, they are having petrol, so they are a rich country, and they must be good friends. So the pity for the Armenia it is that they are in the middle of a situation with a lot of economical interests who are marking the political decision, and to recognize one genocide, it is a political decision of the government, or to recognize what is happening or what happened in Karabakh. Also, it is a political decision, and the decision bring to the country, to the government, consequences. And unfortunately, the government of most of the European countries are thinking about the consequences than the fair, to choose the fair option, because for sure the fair option it is to recognize the genocide, to recognize what is happening in Karabakh, what happened in Karabakh, and how was I could say the responsible of the situation in Karabakh, but they are not thinking about the fairness. They are thinking about their own interest. This is my point of view, and unfortunately, it is not very positive for you.
Actually, I completely agree with you. Thank you very much. I'm impressed how much you are informed about not only the Armenian genocide, but the conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh, the Republic of Artsakh that exists right now between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Actually, it is a big tragedy that things like Armenian genocide, or I don't know, other genocide of Greeks, Holocaust are matter of political games between countries, and small countries like Armenia, they don't have a say in international relations, and the countries who recognize the Armenian genocide, to accept it as the genocide, they do it following their political interests. However, I forgot to tell something, maybe it's interesting. Uruguay was the first country that recognized the Armenian genocide, a small country, which I don't think had any political interest in doing so. On the contrary, we know that in 2019, in December, recently some months before, the Senate of the United States recognized the Armenian genocide. Again, maybe having some political interest, not sure about it, but I completely agree with you. And this is a fact which we can't just ignore while we're speaking about the Armenian genocide, and while we are praising some countries that have recognized the genocide, and just criticizing the others who haven't. I know that one city in Spain has recognized the genocide, not sure which one it is, of course not the country, but let's hope that Spain and other countries will recognize the genocide. And I'm really pleased to hear that people in Spain and in other countries, they feel sorry and embarrassed for what their governments are not doing, and about the absence of the efforts in recognizing the Armenian genocide.
Yes, the problem it is that In Spain, for instance, we have the Armenian community here, but it is not very big, so they cannot make a pressure like the Armenian community in USA or in France, where they were powerful and they were a lot, and they got the recognition from the government. Here in Spain, most of the people doesn't know about the Armenian genocide. Nobody knows what was it, because we don't study about the Armenian genocide at the school. In that time, in that period of the history, we are studying about different facts, but not about the genocide. So the people kind of press to push to the Spanish government, because here it is not it's unknown directly. There are, as you said, some cities and communities, regions who recognize officially the genocide. For instance, right now, today, Carles Puigdemont, ex-president of the Catalonia region, published a tweet in Twitter speaking about the genocide and claiming for the official recognition. But there are just some cases. The number of the people who are concerned about the genocide, or to repair at least morally to Armenia, is very small.
Yes, actually, I think step by step, even if these communities, when they recognize the genocide, step by step, they will continue, and they will demand the country to recognize the genocide. But let's hope that it will happen soon, and it won't be based on political interests. Thank you very much.
Nare, sorry, I just want to add something related to what Javi told about recognition. Javi told that like European countries have really good relations with Turkey. That's why they are not recognizing, but there are many European countries who have already recognized, like Germany, who was the main partner, and one of the most evident country who saw what was happening during that time. And Germany was really brave, and they recognized Armenian genocide in 2016. And there are some countries like France, Cyprus, Bulgaria, Belgium, Austria, and many other European countries who already recognized Armenian genocide. Just wanted to add this about the recognition.
Yeah, I found one list on internet which is telling that there are 29 countries who recognize officially the genocide.
Yeah, I just wanted to add about like European countries. And what was very happy for us, that Germany, who was the main partner during that time, and they knew what was happening during like 1915 in Ottoman Turkey. So they were really brave during that time when they have refugee issues with Turkey. So they recognized it.
Thank you very much. Yes, you can say.
Sorry, I wanted to make a question to Isa, because she was living in Andalusia during 10 months, and the genocide was the motivation, or is the explication about the Armenian diaspora, and she was having very good contact, very close contact with the Armenian living here in Andalusia because of the diaspora. How did you feel with them, Isa? Did you realize if they are keeping the Armenian spirit, living out of Armenia, and how is it?
Actually, when I'm staying for a long period in Europe or like out of Armenia, for me it's very important to search for Armenians, like to make contact, to know how they are living there, what they are doing. And yes, close to Javi city, there was one small, let's say village, but for me it was a small kind of town. So Javi helped me to find their contacts, and I was like during that period communicating with them, and till now I have a good relations with them. For me, they are really patriot. For example, in Russia, I noticed that many Armenians even don't speak Armenian well, so they mostly use Russian language. But in Spain, I found like Armenians, they are like, even they were born in Spain, but they are speaking Armenian language very good. The thing that I wanted to mention, and they put a crossroads. I don't know if you know about this, like we have, it's kind of Armenian, and the spirit is really Armenian. And Armenians, when they live abroad, they build churches, or they just put these crossroads to feel the Armenian spirit. And they told that from Armenia, they brought that crossroads for like the victims of genocide. And today they were posting photos that some of Armenians went there, and still like during this period that it's really hard to go out, they are remembering and I forgot the word, just they are remembering what was happening, and they are, for me, they are more Armenian than some Armenians who are living in Armenia. It's really happy for me that Armenians, when they are living abroad, they keep the spirit of being Armenians.
Yes, they are true patriots, I think. And Isa, you may want to add something about the movie, a famous movie about the Armenian genocide, The Promise. It was shooted in 2015 to mark the 100 years anniversary of Armenian genocide. Maybe you can tell us something about that, because it is connected to Spain as well.
Actually, yeah, yesterday it was my first time to watch this movie, and everyone was speaking about that, and many famous Armenians were involved in this movie, like for organizing that. For sure, you know, System of a Down, all the members of the members were involved there. Also, Charles Aznavour, the famous Armenian French singer. And all the scenes took place in Spain. Actually, I didn't know about this, but it was really good and nice, like to see how they were shooting. And they told that actually they wanted to do all the scenes in Turkey, but the government didn't allow them. So for now, I won't remember which cities exactly, but it was near Madrid, and they were shooting all the scenes in different villages. So especially for Spanish people, will be very nice to see this movie, and a lot of actors, actresses were from Spain too.
Speaking about movies related with the genocide, for the Spaniard, there are another one which is called El Destino de Núñez. And one of the actors, it is Paz Vega. So probably you can find very easily this movie, because Paz Vega is a very famous actor, and probably will be easy to find the movie. It is El Destino de Núñez.
Javi, maybe you can send the link, like.
Maybe
No, I just have the title. I just have the title. I don't have the link.
Okay. So for Promise, if I find the link, because I watched on TV, and I think it's in English, because like actors were mostly from Spain, from France, so it should be in English. Just we watched in Armenian. So if I find it, I will send you, and you can share with others.
Yes, for sure, I will do. So is there somebody else who would like to make a question or to share something?
I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It's a very sad history, but very interesting too. And I have learned a lot. I hope to visit your country because I have one friend from there. And all I heard about your country is good. So I just want to go. I don't know when, but I will go, of course.
Thank you very much. We are waiting for you as we are very hospitable. We hope that this COVID-19 situation will end soon, and we will be able to travel again to share our cultures, our values, and we welcome each of you in Armenia. And when you come to Armenia, of course, you may visit the memorial that I speak about, and I also recommend to go to the museum where you can find a lot more about the Armenian genocide and about the history, because I just told briefly it's impossible to include everything in one webinar training. So I think that's all. If you want to add something, Hobby or others?
I would like to add, as we were speaking about the new movies, I could tell you that there are some songs from different singers or bands who are speaking about the genocide. The most famous probably is Shalas Nabur. The special song for the genocide, the literal translation to the English of the title is "They Dead," but also at least the System of Down. The band is composed for survivor of the genocide, has one song which is called Holy Mountains. And also they have another one like Hypnotize and Plague or War, who are also speaking about the genocide. And here in Spain, there are one violinist who is very, very famous. He has Armenian roots, is Ara Malikian. And he composed one melody, one song called 1915 to commemorate, to remember the memory of the victim of the genocide.
I didn't know about it. I will share check for sure. Thank you. And also I found the trailer of The Promise. I put the link in the chat. So if you are interested, you can watch it and then of course go watch the movie. And thank you for sharing the information about the songs. We will hear for sure. I think that the Armenian community in Spain also has some contribution to the producing of all of these cultural pieces and raising the awareness about the Armenian genocide in Spain.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Somebody else would like to add something, to ask, to share?
I just want to say that I think that in the end, if let's say Erdogan keeps to be like the president of Turkey or whatever they have there, because this is definitely not democracy or something, I think that they will end up getting what they deserve, because in the end, even Europe, the European countries and the European Union will be so much, upset about what he does, because he acts so rationally, like what he did now with the refugees, for putting pressure in Europe. And I think that in the end, what they have, it's going to collapse, I think. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. We could finish. Thank you very much to everybody to be with us today, to spend some of your time to approach to Armenia, to the Armenian genocide, to discover more about this beautiful country and his history. Thank you very much again, and Snora Kalutsun.
Thank you very much, everyone. And if you have additional questions, we can be reached through Javi. You can connect with Javi, and then we may provide you with more information if you are interested. Thank you, and we hope that you will stay healthy and strong during these times, and all of us can overcome this crisis and be in Armenia and be or in other country. I mean, we are. You know, I want to end with the thing that we stay positive in the future, that the Turks, people in Azerbaijan or other countries won't have any denial in the future, and all of us will live in a peace. Thank you very much, and stay healthy.
Thank you very much again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.